back, Ole Miss fans, to another episode of the Rebel Talk. I'm your host, Zach Moreth. I'm back with Billy Kuhl. We're coming at you guys with another episode. Whew. And in 48 hours, it will be game day for the number 5 Ole Miss Rebels taking on the number 9 Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's a 7.5-point favorite up to this point. If I was allowed to bet, I would say I think that's a little excessive, even though Georgia does a nice job covering. I think this Ole Miss job has done a pretty good job responding from what I've heard throughout the week of practice, whether it's showing up early to team meetings or staying late and doing all the things in between. I know that clip of Lane Kiffin went pretty viral of him being really pissed off in the locker room after the game. Those are emotions from Lane talking about we built it here. Those are things that we haven't really heard or seen, in all honesty. And I mentioned it on a couple of shows ago, but that was the second time that I've ever seen Lane Kiffin run out with the team. So it's just little things, and feels like he finally found a pretty decent home here. Hopefully I'm not jinxing this when Lane, if he takes another job in a couple of months. I mean, this clip would be awfully bad for Rebel Walk, but we're going to focus on this week. So first and foremost, Ole Miss, a lot of talk about Austin and Trinidad. I feel in a weird spot, Billy, because if you're Trinidad, at this point, there's so much pressure on him. I feel like from his perspective, if he messes up, he feels like he's going to get pulled because of that. And in my opinion, that's not a good way to play. And I think we saw a little bit of that last week. So I'm hoping they reinstilled some confidence in him and said to him, like, look, we're going to ride with you this whole game. We'll make decisions after the week, but it's never a good sign if you're debating quarterback to quarterback for this long in the process. I understand the things with Austin. I understand he was a starter at the beginning of the year. But Trinidad's come in and really made an unbelievable impact, and he brings that run aspect, that ability to scramble, which is going to be crucial if you want to come in and beat Georgia. So just wanted to get your thoughts there to start off, Billy.
Yeah, I actually have Trinidad's game logs right here. Trinidad came out rough, and I think the lack of points that based off of the expectation going into the week has a lot of people talking. But if you just center yourself again and look back at the game he had, he went 20 for 29 in the air. He threw for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. He lost a fumble, but he didn't throw a pick. Well, he threw a pick, but it got called back. But
Yep.
so on the stat sheet. Statistically speaking, he's still really he had a really good game. He seems really locked in. After the game, Wayne wasn't the only one that was pissed. Every single player that came in and spoke after that win was pissed. They were like, "That's not us. That's not the standard here anymore." And they need to win. They need to win those games more, by more. I mean,
no, 100%. And again, dude, it seemed the whole thing was uncharacteristic. It had glimpses of that Kentucky game last year. But I'm just beyond fortunate that we escaped that with a win. Because now it feels like, 6-0, the whole map's in front of you. You know what you have to do to make the college football playoffs. And a big step in that is winning against Georgia. So it's going to be unbelievably hard. I don't know if you guys have listened, but Kirby, even all their fans on Twitter, they are like begging these fans to come up and make it the rowdiest environment that Sanford Stadium has ever seen. They want to prevent Lane from talking to Trinidad. They want to prevent Trinidad's ability to, shake off a play or do a quick audible on a read that he sees. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be hectic. And this is really the first true road test for Ole Miss, followed up by Oklahoma next week. So it really doesn't get a whole lot better. But one thing's true, and they have to establish the run game. I want you to speak on that, Billy, and how important it is.
Well, I mean, Q1 had a phenomenal game last week. And to my predictions that I sent to our prediction guy, Cam, I said my X Factor player was Keywan Lacey. Not quite sure if he breaks 100 yards. That run defense is very, very good. But last week was the first time he didn't score a touchdown this season, and I think he's going to be used a lot more in those crucial red zone situations. And I think he breaks the plane once, maybe twice. I mean, if he's feeling it 3.
Right.
I don't know how much we're going to have in the air because of Georgia's elite secondary is like the only way I can put that. But the running game is going to rely a lot on the offensive line. The offensive line needs to clean up 2 things. Keywan had a lot of tackles at the line. They didn't, And he did that and went on to proceed for 5.9 yards a carry last week. But Trinidad was sacked 3 times and was pressured a lot more than I think we're used to seeing this year. So they really need to clean it up. Kiwan will break the tackles. You just need to get him space, and he'll have a big week.
Yeah, I agree, dude. And whether it's Kiwan, I think another aspect, like you mentioned, is Trinidad's ability to scramble and pick up yards after pressure. And when that doesn't happen, I think it kind of limits the offense and Kiwan's ability to, go on breakaway runs because they're anticipating him getting the ball so much, especially when Trinidad can't run. Kind of a little fun stat. The next running back with the most amount of carries is Logan Diggs. He has 108 less carries than Kiwan Lacey. There is a point where you do need to be careful. Again, Lacey probably weighs only 200 pounds when Diggs is a guy who's clearly got a lot more meat on the bone. So you want to be careful, make sure to maintain his health, even though he's looked phenomenal, and he's going to be a crucial piece of this offense going into Georgia. My X factor, sorry if you guys can hear that. My X factor for the week, Daquan Wright. This dude, it's going to be pretty
I have
important.
him in my notes.
Yeah, it's going to be real important for him to utilize the middle of the field to spread apart these Georgia linebackers. I mean, you guys understand it, but these are players on defense that were all top 100 recruits in their high school classes. Kirby's gone out in the portal, gotten 5-star guys. So it's almost like an all-star team, and I don't say that lightly because they're pissed off about last year. They're going to be ready to go, and they got guys who are probably all going to have a chance to play in the NFL. So guys like Daquan Wright, who typically play well, are going to have to rise up even more in the situation. And then I can't even begin to talk about the importance of Trey Wallace making big plays, Deuce Alexander, Caden Lee. Caden and Deuce are both going back to their home state of Georgia. That's a big one for them. Stribling as well. It's going to be one of those games like last year. It was like Trey Harris was out. The perception was everyone's going to have to get a couple touches, a couple carries and receptions. And I think it's kind of that same message and motive heading into this week, Billy.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, my back-to-back notes are wide receivers need to win matchups. And realistically, they just need to find one matchup that they can continue to win. Whether that's Deuce outside or in the slot, Caden across the field, like across the middle, Daquan beating a linebacker, or Trey beating realistically the CB1 for Georgia, or however they want to throw that at them. But you need to find a matchup, and you need to win that matchup. And then followed up by Daquan Wright will have a huge impact on the game. Daquan has been honestly the safety valve, but he's also made some big-time plays downfield. I mean, you go to the LSU game, his one-handed catch. He had a big 30-yard gain last week. Then he caught a 2-yard touchdown. I mean,
yeah,
he's a big player for this offense, and he was someone I didn't expect to get a lot of carries because of the acquisition of Luke Oz. I think the injury really skyrocketed his potential on this team, and he kind of earned his spot. Earned that starting spot alone.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I want to move in briefly before we move into this Georgia offense. Kyron Jones, I talked about it before the show with Billy, but he's one of their DBs who's been pretty consistent in the rotation, got a lot of playing time at Auburn. I even reached out to one of my friends on the Georgia staff, and he said Kyron must have gotten hurt during practice, but Kyron Jones is out. If you look at that injury report, he's probably the most notable name out of all the Georgia players who's not going to play. But again, their backups are just as good as any backups in the country. So it's going to be a challenge, but Billy makes a great point. You look at what Lane Kiffin does in these big games, and it's finding that outside matchup, which is going to work every single time. I'll take you guys back to, I think it was 2022, Alabama in Vaught-Hemingway, back when Terrion Arnold, before he became an All-ICC and eventually an NFL cornerback, he was a scrawny little freshman young guy getting picked apart all game from Malik Heath. So it's finding that underdeveloped player. They did it against LSU with Deuce Alexander. They have to do it again this week there in Athens. Real quick, we can move into the Georgia side of things. Arguably the best team we'll face with a effective rushing offense. Nate Frazier, Gunnar Stockton's a guy who can put it on the ground and make plays from something out of nothing. So the defensive line not only has to prevent the run, but they have to finish plays, man. It's been a little bit of a problem letting the QB scramble around and, kind of like how Trinidad does against other teams. But guys like Prince William Onmielen, Deshaun Womack, Will Eccles has done a nice job, but it's got to be more consistent. And they got to make it a point to limit the run and maintain Gunnar Stockton, keeping contained as much as possible over there, Billy.
The big thing for me is our rotational players have to make just as much of an impact as our starting players. That's something that ruined the Georgia offense last year, was because all those guys you just listed were practically backups except for the transfers.
Yep.
So, I mean, you just have to you have to have that same mentality as a rotational guy than you do our starters going out there, and you have to keep him under control. He has Gunnar Stockton himself has 220 rush yards on 48 carries, and then Frazier and Bowens are combined for over 600, just about. And they're electric on the ground. That's their style. And they want to get outside. They want to be able to get themselves into space. They can bully you up the middle, though. That's the problem, too. So you need guys like Jamarius Brown as well to step up with that big body up the middle and really push back against that.
It's going to be important. And with that, you have guys like Zach Branch out wide playing wide receiver. These safeties have to finish tackles. I'll take you guys back to that play 2 years ago. Ladd McConkey dicing up our secondary. He absolutely torches DeAndre Prince, makes the catch, and then goes all the way down the field and basically scores a touchdown. Those momentum plays have to be prevented on the road. I said it. I'll say it again. These fans are fired up. They're not used to losing, and they lost handedly in Oxford last year. Kirby's had this game circled on his calendar. It is going to be an all-out war in Sanford Stadium. And if they are able to get momentum on those big plays to their wide receivers, yeah, it could be a long day for Ole Miss. So it's going to be important. I think one of my keys to the game, Billy, is, and I'm probably going to jinx it so you guys can all come at me when this doesn't happen, but getting out there and scoring on that scripted drive, even if it's a field goal, it kind of sets the tone. And look, we're pretty confident Ole Miss is going to receive. Lane is going to receive if they win, and Georgia's probably going to defer if they win the toss. It's just how he rolls. So that first drive, it's scripted. They know what's coming. The crowd doesn't even matter because all you have to do is line up and you know the play. Just don't get off or false start.
A couple hand signals.
Yeah, like this is go out, set the tone. They did it a couple of years ago, and it was a very different game in terms of talent. But in my opinion, it really helped take away the crowd in that first half of the game in Athens a couple of years ago, especially when you take into consideration that this isn't a night game. Again, I don't want to get clipped for this because I'm not dissing the Georgia crowd. I'm saying on a national level, the earlier the game, in my opinion, and like a lot of others believe, kind of the less, hectic environment. That's why people complain about LSU all the time. So I don't want to get clipped for saying that. But if you can go out and establish yourselves in the first couple of drives in the first quarter of the game, it's got to happen. And then my second key, you have to close this game out if you're in the driver's seat. Georgia is an unbelievable second half team. They go from looking like last year's Georgia in the first half to prime early 2020s Georgia in the second half. So,
I mean, how many yards did they have in the first half last game? 25?
Yeah, it was awful. Like, just awful. And
I mean, in the most respectful way possible to Auburn, too. They are not the best football team this year.
Auburn looked like the 85 Bears out there.
I know.
Yeah.
They look amazing.
Yeah, you really have to go out there full throttle first quarter, but then maintain that lead because they're going to chip away. And it's in those fourth quarters. I mean, they almost did it to Alabama. I don't know how this game's going to go, but if you're Ole Miss and you want to get the win in the most complete way possible, it's dominating that first half and then just hold on tight and do not let go for the rest of the game. But it's going to be interesting, Billy. Anything specifically from that Georgia offense that you think could be really disruptive?
I think the obvious answer is Gunnar Stockton. I mean, he can light you up in the air and he can extend plays on the ground with his legs. And then he can do both by scrambling out of the pocket, staying behind the line, and their wide receivers do a great job in the scramble drill, just like drop the route and
Yeah.
get open in any way you can and be on the same page. That's where their chemistry comes in, which is another thing I think the Georgia staff and the Georgia team does really well every single year is the team chemistry. But I think Gunnar Stockton's going to present a lot of challenges. He's the best dual threat quarterback we've seen this year, and that says a lot. We faced Taylen Green,
Yeah.
and I mean, I feel like everybody's been a dual threat quarterback
Right.
for us.
Yeah. Ole
And
Miss, they're going to have
yeah,
experience with the dual threat guys, but they really have to keep him contained because that Georgia run game it's going to be explosive and they got to limit it as much as possible. Billy, before we started the show, you talked about special teams, the importance of
yes,
it. I think in a game on the road, what does
yeah.
it mean for Ole Miss and how important is it really going to be in Athens?
This is something I feel gets overlooked all the time. Lucas Carnero is going to have a big game, just like Caden Davis did last year. What Caden Davis went 5 for 5 last year, something like that,
Yeah,
something
he was
crazy.
he was awesome.
Yeah. So one, our offense, if they get in a field goal range, they have to help him out. They can't leave him 55 yarders the whole game. But then I also think Oscar Bird, who was a huge part of our win last week, Oscar Bird had 3 punts last week, and 2 of them were inside the 20, and he netted 143 yards.
Damn,
That's a
that's
big
dirty.
week. Like you overlook punting all the time, but how helpful is it to make the other team go so much
Yep,
further? And like it sucks. Oh, you want to score every drive, but realistically, you're gonna have to send it away a couple times. And
I love
I
it.
think Oscar Bird has been a huge factor for this team, who's been severely overlooked.
Yeah, this is a pro punting podcast, so shout out to Bird and shout out to the special teams guys. We got you, man. You're not going to get talked about on any other podcast this week, so huge shout out to those fellas. They're going to be a huge part of the game. We talked about Caden Davis last year, but field goals, got to make them, got to take advantage of them. Those fourth down turnovers, I can't even explain how bad those are on the road. I mean, full throttle momentum flips. So you have to score and you have to take the points, even if it's against his nature in Lane Kiffin. But overall score prediction, Billy, I want to dive into this a little bit. I said it. If I could bet, I would throw money on Ole Miss plus 7.5. I think I'm a little surprised by that. Maybe I'm missing something, but based on what I've seen from Georgia and how good Ole Miss can be, I think 3.5 or 4.5 felt a little more appropriate. I'm taking Ole Miss plus 7.5. I do have Georgia winning the game,
Me as well.
31-27. I did this last year, so maybe I'm just like psychologically convincing myself that if I predict Georgia, it'll give good momentum to Ole Miss. Does that make no? It doesn't make any sense. But that's where I'm at. I think Georgia gets avenged, gets totally avenges last year. Probably another second half comeback, but still, Ole Miss can afford to. I don't like saying this, but if there's a game they can afford to lose, it's this one. They just have to keep it close and very competitive on the road.
I have Georgia covering by the half point. My score prediction I sent in was 32-24 Georgia.
Valid.
But I just think I'm very interested to say it that way. I'm very interested to see how Ole Miss goes out, but I just think Sanford Stadium hasn't had a rally for an environment like this, and I feel like so long. Like
Yeah, you're
they
right.
show up, but I have never seen them rally like this to get fans. Like you normally do that when it's urgent, and I think they're going to come out with a sense of urgency and we're going to keep it a close game for a little bit, but I think they get that one score at the end of the game. They might be up 5, and I maybe think kick a field goal to force it to 8. And I just think ultimately they come out with a win.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. The game's going to kick off at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. This is the Rebel Talk podcast. Anything else, Billy?
A little bit on our defense, actually.
Oh, sure.
You,
Feel free.
I think you talked really well about Will Eccles, and something I didn't notice, which might just be bad journalism, but Sontarian Perkins does not have a sack this
Yeah.
year. And I think that might be Lane just like trying to do different things with him. I think he's a true hybrid. And I think we might see a double on Eccles or Prince Will, not Princely. And I think Perk might come off the edge at least once.
Perk's got to eat. Perks has to eat this week. He really has
He
been
was a big part of the game last year as well. So
yeah, huge, dude.
I think he's someone that's going to step up big.
Yeah, he's got to be. They moved him around, but his success is going to be crucial. And he's going to have to be a maniac, especially with Stockton running around all over the place. I believe that's all we have. Again, we both have Georgia winning. Hopefully that's not the case, but Ole Miss, Georgia, 2:30 Central this week. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment on the podcast. Drop a follow to us on social media. And as always, be sure to tune into therebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs. Thanks, guys.